Okay, so integrations can help you control the customer journey and grow your business by getting data from other sources into one central location. We investigated Sales CRM a few episodes ago, and we know that your Sales CRM is the hub for these types of situations and conversations. But what tools would you integrate with that? I guess who better to tell us than Peter? If we think about that a little more specifically, a couple of episodes ago, we had investigated Sales CRM. So if we're thinking about it from like a CRM perspective and the ability to integrate other tools into that, which tools, in your opinion, or types of tools for that matter, when integrated with your CRM have the biggest impact? What are the tools that really like show you more or can do the most for you?
It's useful to realize that when Salesforce came into existence, the term CRM was also often phrased as Salesforce automation. It was really a system of record, and it was a waterfall process in which marketing created leads, and leads were fed to sales, which turned them into opportunities, which turned them into deliveries. And it was a very sequential kind of thing. And CRM was something used by people inside the wall to talk about and interact with people outside the wall. What's happened now is that the definition of your brand is not as much defined by what you say it is, by your marketing and advertising and so on, as your brand is now defined by the conversations people have about you, whether you're in the room or not. You can facilitate those conversations, but you can't control them. And so now CRM must accomplish two goals. First, it means you need to know everything that your organization is doing with the customer at every stage. What happens when you don't do that? Well, I'll talk to people in financial services and I'll start raising up my fingers and counting on them and saying, if I have a checking account, a savings account, a home loan, a car loan, an educational savings account for my children, and a retirement account, how many of me do you know? And they'll look at my upraised fingers and say, well, we know the 5 of you that we're doing business with in separate lines of business, and we'll know the 2 of you that we're trying to market to without realizing we already have 5 other existing relationships with you. Well, that's not good.
Right.
And if you go into a sales situation with a customer and you are tone deaf to the fact that that customer is currently a yellow account with an active service issue, and they know that and you don't, at minimum, you seem tone deaf and disengaged, and at worst, you could just torpedo the relationship. So even within a company, integration is vital. Our research with Deloitte has shown that it's not unusual for a company to have more than 3 separate places where it might have information about various states of play with a single customer. Marketing campaigns in progress, sales deliveries in the process of being made, service cases that are open, and so on. Even getting a single representation of your own interactions with a customer was a major accomplishment during Salesforce's first 10 years as a going concern. And now, of course, having an understanding of what your ecosystem partners might be doing and the places that your customers' competitors might be going, so that you can be having a transformational and advisory conversation and not just a selling conversation, really means that CRM uninformed by data from outside the sales silo really isn't CRM anymore. It might be a sales support tool. You really can't call it CRM if all it does is sales support.
So what you're telling me is that on average, there's over 3 places that a business might have information about a customer? That's a lot. There seems to be a lot of options here to integrate. So how do you choose one to tie those together? How do you know which ones will be best?
So if there's a growing business out there that's watching this and thinking about the different ways they can integrate the tools, are there specific data points or maybe rules of thumb, best practices that you could think of that would kind of, help to inform that decision of, which integrations matter the most?
Among the most useful things that any company can do, and I encourage people to do this as one of the first steps in beginning to think about a digital upgrade of their environment, is simply to walk around the office and look over people's shoulders. And anywhere that you see people working on a spreadsheet and having a conversation by phone or email or Slack about that spreadsheet, figure out what you are seeing. There's some business logic, there's some sources of data, There's some interested parties with a point of view and a decision to make or an action to take. And that spreadsheet is an unmaintainable, insecure, not collaboration-oriented way of getting that done, but at least it has provided a foundational statement of what do we know and what do we want to know about it and what do we want to do about what we figure out. And then you start saying, okay, cool. Now instead of a download that file and copy and paste integration, or a download that file and CSV file import into my spreadsheet integration, now let's start building something that runs a little more automatically, is more auditable and robust, and can scale. And that's an approach that can work because you don't need to have an IT background to look around and see where are the decisions getting made. There is a temptation in any organization to say, I don't have time to solve this problem the right way, but I can build a spreadsheet and get something in the next hour that lets me answer the question I need to answer. And the problem is trees grow by accumulating growth rings, and spreadsheets grow by adding columns or adding sheets to the workbook. And at some point you need to go back and say, okay, what have we learned about the problem here? And how should this be a Force.com application in the Salesforce platform? But also what other tools should be interacting with it to add specific capability? And what data sources do we need to have? What are the guardrails on that data access? What are the verifications we'll put in place that that data is being properly maintained and governed, so we don't wind up pointing at a data repository that in fact is not being maintained as well as it should? It's got to be an ongoing process where you think about the life cycle and not just get it working today and assume that it works indefinitely, because that's a poor assumption.
All right. It's important to look at your processes and then ask yourself some questions. Where are the hangups? Where do you have to look for information in another tool? What kinds of running spreadsheets or documents do you have that you're continually adding data to? These look like good places to start. Neha and I talked about this issue too, and she had some great advice for entrepreneurs and business owners looking to narrow it down. All of the tools that are in there solve different problems, and the problem is how do you provide the best experience for your customers so that they remain your customers? And that's all a different aspect. Every business is different depending on your product, your service, your offer. They're going to have different problems. They're going to need different tools to solve those problems. So the idea that there is some all-in-one type miracle software is sort of just, we call it the myth of the all-in-one at ActiveCampaign. But if you have a business, whether it's a course creator or an entrepreneur that's sort of just getting started, and like we said, integrations are daunting, they might be starting to approach the subject. Do you have any best practices, advice, rules of thumb for how to approach the whole process of integrations, or how to select a tool? Anything there?
Yeah, I think definitely look at the unique needs of your business and what you feel is going to have the biggest impact on your company's bottom line. So I know I've personally chatted with dozens of Thinkific course creators recently that say for them, when they're first starting out, it's almost from this place of wishing they could replicate themselves or wishing they could do so much more, but they ultimately don't have the time, right? They have families, maybe this is their side hustle and they have a full-time job. So they're always trying to think of, how do I replicate myself, right? How do I make money while I'm sleeping or doing something else? I think at the end of the day, that's every entrepreneur's end game. When you're starting off, think of your biggest pain point and address that first. And you know what? It is going to be a trial and error process, right? And that is okay. That's normal. It's like when you're at a shoe store and you're trying on a different pair of heels or sneakers, I don't know about you, Ernie, but when I try on a pair of shoes at the store, I have to walk a little bit to see how they fit. And sometimes, 100%. Even though they're size 8.5, which is the size I wear, and they look exactly like, the pair of shoes I wanted or was searching for, when you try them on and you walk around a little bit, you're like, ooh, I don't know, this is a little uncomfortable, or I think I can do better. And I think of apps in that same way. It's not going to be one size fits all. You're going to do some trial and error, take advantage of free trials that different apps offer, see what makes the most sense for your business and your budget. And don't think you need to do it all at once, right? Work your way up. So focus on the biggest pain point of your business. When you think you have a pretty good handle of that, go on to the next step.
Hi, thank you for watching. If you are enjoying Growth Decoded, you can find a link in the description to sign up and join the Grow team. You'll get exclusive content and opportunities that have to do with the show. You can also hit the subscribe button for ActiveCampaign's YouTube channel somewhere down here, and you will never miss an update from us.